This is going to be all about productivity, productivity's secrets for insurance agents. And here's the secret of this webinar is the fact that there really, as you can imagine, no real secret, so to speak, in productivity. The secret is overcoming some of the things that happen to us and being mindful and creating a game plan that we can do. Those are the secrets, and actually following through. That's the difficult part. Everybody wants to be more productive, right? But the ability to actually overcome some of the distractions that we'll talk about today and those things that come at us every day. I will tell you, just to give a little background, some of you know who I am, some of you have no idea and maybe hopped on here just because thought the content will be valuable, which it will be. But my name is Brent Kelly. I am CEO of BizGriz. We focus specifically on helping insurance agents with marketing and sales programs. So really excited you're on today. One of the things that I love about this content on this webinar, I've done this in workshop form as well, is the fact that it's one of my biggest struggles. And so the reason why I like to teach it and to develop it and work on it is because it keeps me sharp. Because I can tell you there's a lot of things I'm going to talk about today that I'm not perfect with myself. I probably never will be. But I know there are things that if I put in place and do the right things, it can help me be more productive. And this is true certainly in the insurance agent world. So it's been a daily struggle. So I want to kind of lead off with one of the most famous business minds probably in history, really. I mean, Dwight Schrute. Not only an expert in beats, but certainly a productivity master. And now, if you're not an Office fan, you have absolutely no idea who I'm talking about. If you are, you're probably chuckling. But although this quote is a little bit silly, certainly it's kind of true. I ask myself, would an idiot do that? And if the answer is yes, I do not do that thing. So if you can learn that one thing today, you're already well ahead here on a Friday morning. So want to dig in and kind of share a story with all of you about shiny object syndrome. And I spent 15 years in the insurance industry, and this is really true in any industry, any profession, is that it's so easy to become distracted and lose focus on shiny objects. And so I want to kind of give you an idea. This is probably a typical morning for me often in the insurance agency. And so maybe I had something to do that day as far as I need to work on a proposal or do some prospecting or whatever. So for example, I may come into the office and I need to work on this proposal. It's something I don't, it's maybe not the most favorite thing to do, but I have to get it done because I have a presentation tomorrow, right? So I would start up the proposal, and as I was going along, I would get a phone call. Maybe I'm a few minutes in and I get a call, hey, I need something. Okay, yeah, no problem. Let me do that. In the midst of that, then I go off because I'm on the phone. I may actually be wandering over to my email inbox just to see if I happen to get an email or two while I was on the phone. And then, oh, I did get one, so I better reply to that one right this second because obviously it's urgent. Not really, but it feels that way. And then maybe someone would drop in the office and say, hey, did you watch the game last night? Oh, yeah, I did. And of course, I'm a talker, so I'm going to go on forever. And then I may get a text from my wife who says, hey, don't forget to, do whatever, or bring some chicken home tonight for dinner. Sure. And then I get a social media ding. Then I go to the bathroom because it's been, 15, 20 minutes of this, and I've had my cup of coffee, and I come back, and I have absolutely no idea what I was doing. All right, and then the process continues to repeat itself. So I'm guessing that maybe some of you had an experience similar to that, where it's the shiny object syndrome, that I just see something, anything that captures my attention, and I just start to go off in a different course. So what I want to focus on today in a big picture is this acronym called FOCUS, follow one course until successful. And why this is so important is the fact that we all have things that are important to us to get done, but we often don't follow that one course until until we succeed at it. And so the big overarching theme of this is that too often, as a human society and as insurance agents, we wait for something to happen to us instead of planning to do something and doing it. We are reactive versus being proactive. Right? So everything is what is somebody in my email box telling me to do? What is this person telling me I need to do? What is this phone call telling me? What is this note on my desk? Versus coming in with a plan. And we're going to dig into a lot of that today. But one of the biggest distractions, period, I already talked about it, one of the biggest culprits is distractions, mainly digital distractions. And so I got my friend Woody and Buzz here I'm a big Toy Story fan. I've got 4 young kids, so I've watched Toy Story, I don't know, a couple hundred times at least. But distractions really are everywhere. And I want to launch this poll for you. Hopefully I can figure out the technology here. And ask you just a general question. You can, by the way, you can answer more than once. So I just launched this poll. You should have it. What distraction, it could be distractions, do you struggle with the most? So on your dialog box on the right there, you got your little green or your little orange flower. Make sure you click on that and answer your question. Is it emails, is it phone calls, is it office conversations, social media, or is it what? What did you just say? Squirrel. So you've already forgotten what the distraction is because you're doing something else. And I won't even call it the fact that I know for a certainty that many of you are already checking emails or looking at something else while you're on this webinar. So I challenge you today to focus, to hang with me. It's only 30, 45 minutes. You're going to get some really good value out of this and take it back and help you make more money. So, all right, so I'm getting some answers, and I got 71 people have voted. 76% have voted. I'm always curious on this because I've done this live and I get a variety of answers, but generally I usually know the number one thing, number one and number two, and this is following along. So I've got 83% voted, 17% of you are shy or are distracted. That's okay. I'm not gonna. I don't know who you are, so I'm not gonna call you out or anything. All right. Well, I'll wrap this up here in a second, but. So what I'm getting back before I close the poll, 60% of you said that emails are a problem, number one. And then number two is social media, and then followed by phone calls and or texts, and then office conversations. And I'm glad that somebody, at least one or two of you, marked squirrel, what did you just say, because you can't focus even for a second. And that's me in a lot of cases. I have a hard time really focusing. So let me close this poll and get out of that. And so I want to talk about digital distractions and the war for your attention, right? The war for your attention. What does that mean? You look at your desk, and again, you've got phones and tablets and computers and whatever else. So you're inundated with messages and buzzes and alerts and dings and texts and chirps. So how in the world do you actually expect to succeed? And I've got a slide here. These stats are pretty amazing, if you ask me. Maybe not because I've done most of them, but they really are kind of shocking to some degree. So talking about a noisy world, right, and digital distractions. This is a recent study. And I'm not going to ask you. Well, I tell you what, maybe I can. There's a little. I haven't done this before. There's a little hand that you can raise on here. So raise your hand if you know how to do that in the sidebar. If these affect you as well. But 53% report checking email while driving. We never go on vacation in the world anymore because we go on vacation. We have our smartphone, which basically is our entire computer, right, with us wherever we go. And then this is interesting. How about this one, huh? Office workers check email up to 40 per hour. Now you hear that and you're like, that's crazy. But think about it. If you got Outlook open or whatever, how many times did you really go back and glance at email? You may be shocked. And again, maybe you're not one that does some of these things. Maybe you know somebody who does. But and then about 2/3 of us, we check our phones for alerts and messages, even though we weren't alerted for anything. So we just, our phone's in our pocket, and like, have you ever got I'm going to be transparent here. I get the sensation that my phone is buzzing sometimes in my pocket, and there isn't any. It's like almost like this natural feedback. It's kind of crazy. So the biggest thing too, I was just telling my business partner, 69% can't go to bed without checking their inbox. That's a problem because that obviously your inbox may have things in it which cause you to contemplate more ideas and you can't sleep. But I was at the point just recently where I did get a old-fashioned alarm clock and park my phone across the room because I can't be tempted. If I look at my phone to set the alarm, I'm probably going to check something else while I'm doing that. And when I wake up first thing in the morning because my phone alarm is ringing, I'm going to probably check something when I wake. So that's something that I had to do. That goes back to the getting out of bed. They check the phone to get out of bed, and then the big one that I certainly stopped years ago with small kids is checking email at the dinner table. So some crazy stats on there, but it just shows how distractions play a role in our lives. And on average, this is another study. This has been proven. On average, we are distracted every 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes, we are distracted in some form or another. Kind of crazy. But think about it. I mean, think about just trying to do something and just losing your attention, right, of something. And it actually takes us, I gotta hit the button here, it actually takes us 11 minutes to regain concentration. So if you start something basic, whatever it may be, and you're going 3 minutes and you get distracted, it takes 11 minutes to get back into where you were at that 3 minute point. And here's another crazier thing is that 40% of the time, we don't even resume the task we were previously doing. So just think about that. You know, we start something, 3 minutes we interrupted with some type of distraction, then for 11 minutes it takes us to get back to where we were, or about half the time we don't even do it. All right, so my math isn't very good, right? I'm not a math guy, but what tells me is that really, for an average American, and this is probably true of the average insurance agent, for about 12 minutes of real in quotes, work, it takes us about an hour. So every hour we get about 12 minutes of real work in because, again, it takes us 11 minutes to resume what we were doing. So I want to share with you really a game-changing mindset. And some people have a hard time with this, some people not as much. But here's the game-changing mindset shift that you don't need to know. And when I say you don't need to know, that means you don't need to know right away who that email is from. You don't, not that exact second. Believe me, you don't necessarily know who that text is from. You don't need to know the status update, and you really don't need to know what the Kardashians are doing. I mean, really, especially today. All right, you don't need to know. And so, you know, my epiphany on this is to, you know, I physically can't control 99.9% plus of what's happening in the world. I can't control what's happening in the Middle East. I can't control the water problem in California. You know, all those kind of things, they're inundated all over the place. I can't control that cats are playing with yarn on Facebook, whatever that is. I can't control that. But I can control the 0.001% that will determine if I'm going to be successful or not. So you need to find a way to start to separate yourself from the world. Doesn't mean you don't need to know what's going on. I'm not telling you to never check out the news, but believe me, in today's world, you can get the news pretty darn quick. You know, I can catch up on, if I wanted to, on Twitter or go to CNN.com and have all the news I needed in a day in about 10 minutes versus watching it for 8 hours. So, but just a big picture of that is that you control what you can control, and that's the idea on this. And so I attended a really cool session with Darren Hardy. Darren Hardy is the CEO of Success Magazine, high achieving performer, you know, has done really, really well for himself. And I bought something called Insane Productivity, amazing program, highly recommend it for anybody that really struggles with productivity. But one of the things we talked about was that we often mistake rushing and movement and activity for real stuff, right? We like to rush around and move around and activity, and it's like, you know, somebody's like, you know, you get home from the day, it's like, how was your day? Oh, it's a crazy day. It's the craziest day. How's it been busy? What'd you do? Well, I don't really know, but I was really, really busy, right? And we all say that, right? I mean, ask anybody today of how are you doing today, and get a little farther than okay, and most often you're going to hear the words what? I'm busy. It's crazy out there, man. It's crazy. You know, I'm just trying to make it through. It's busy. A lot going on. And it's true, we are all busy, but what we got to figure out is that there's a difference between rushing, movement, and activity as results, achievement, and productivity. And then the big thing here is the big difference between long work and hard work, right? There's a difference between long work and hard work. You can work long and not do anything, but you can also work long or even shorter and do the hard work, and that's known as real work. So we're going to talk about today about trying to do, instead of doing more things, I got to do more things. I got 85 things on my to-do list. We're going to try to just do better things. And that's going to help simplify things for you. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. I hope I don't lead into this. I absolutely will. But you know, how many of you pride yourself on the ability to multitask, or do you think that multitasking is something that's that helps you be more productive? And again, I'm probably leading you in there. I'm going to launch my second poll here. So I just get your thoughts on. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on multitasking. Do you think it's vital to your success? Do you think you're a great multitasker? Again, you can answer more than one of these. You think successful people multitask? Do you think it's a myth? Or I forgot what I had on here. It cuts off, but I answered the question while doing 14 other things. So give me your answers. If I had some good music, I'd play it here. But see, I steered you guys into that. You probably would have done that anyway. So we've got mixed bag. About over half are voted. I'm going to take a drink here real quick while you guys vote. Cool. All right, I got most of you in. So right now we've got the myth. Multitasking is a myth. True multitasking is a myth. 60%, and then about a quarter of you think that it is a skill that most successful people possess. A very small one, maybe one or two people thought they were a great multitasker, and then a few people thought that it's vital to my success. And hey, 15% of you, good for you. are doing 14 other things while they're listening to this webinar right now. So they're proving me, are going to prove me wrong here maybe, right, when I'm going to tell you. So you probably saw this coming. This isn't a shock, so to speak, but here's the reality. I mean, truthfully, and this has been proven in studies, and I'll talk about it, that mental multitasking, mental, keyword is mental, is a myth. It truly is a myth. And we see it in society as a badge of honor. I mean, it's just right or wrong. People perceive the fact that if I can do 15 things at once, that I am conquering the world, right? And it's kind of shown that way. But the reality of it is that multitasking really is one of the least productive things you can do. And here's why. It's simply switching. It's simply switching. You can do a mental and physical task together, right? You can exercise and listen to a podcast, for example. You can drive a car and listen to the radio or have a conversation with somebody. You know, again, because driving isn't a mental, yeah, maybe, but it's kind of, you know, you're just kind of going through the motions a little bit. But you can do physical and mental together. So really, what you're doing is it's just switching. It's just switching. And the reality of it is this. So let's say you are the person that, you know, admittedly is doing listening to this webinar and also checking their email box. And by the way, I've been one of those in many webinars, so I'll raise my hand. It's not productive, because I can tell you what happens. I send bad emails generally if they're important, and I get little of the content from the webinar. Because what happens is your brain is listening to 10 words that I'm saying and processing those words and going, okay, I got it, or, you know, whatever you're doing with that. And then immediately it's clicking back and going to an email going, okay, hey, Bob, by the way, I'll send you these things later today, and you're kind of focused on that, and you switch back. So you're not really doing both. You're just switching. And what's happened in society is that you are actually giving yourself a disorder that we now over-medicate our children for, right? ADD. But now you're giving yourself what's called acquired attention deficit disorder, because if you are accustomed to multitasking and constant distractions, right, you need constant things. And by the way, again, this is something I personally struggle with. You are actually choosing a state, right, it's choosing a state of being that most people will medicate. And that is the fact that our kids are just overstimulated. They never stop. They're always doing something, right? And so we're actually doing that by multitasking. So I'm going to give you guys a thought today, right? I'll give you several thoughts, but one thought here is that I want you to single task. This comes from Life Hack, but do one thing at a time and give it all you've got. And we're going to talk about in detail about what that means. But instead of saying I'm going to do, you know, these 5 things at once, just do one. And I got a challenge coming up for you as well. It's going to be a little more difficult. But here's the reality with this too: is that multitasking actually reduces. This has been a study, reduces productivity by 40%. All right, and the conclusion is this. There's a Spanish philosopher, Seneca. Anybody know Seneca? I didn't, but I saw this quote, and it was great. It says, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. So if you're everywhere, trying to be everywhere in the world, you're really nowhere. It's kind of like, you know, you've been at a networking event, and you're talking to somebody, and they're not really talking to you. They're doing it to be kind and courteous, but really they're looking over your shoulder because there's other people they want to talk to, which, by the way, is like ultimately rude. But that's really what multitasking is. You can't process it all, and you're really not anywhere. So I'm going to share a story with you on Pete Rose. Now, whether you know Pete Rose or not, if you don't, he's a famous baseball player, also a famous, we'll call him a famous gambler. But Pete Rose was one of the best hitters of all time, most hits of all time, actually. And, you know, has a very crazy personality style, but he was an amazing Major League Baseball player, okay? And there's a story that really kind of emphasized of what made Pete Rose so great as a baseball player, was that in 1979, and again, I'm sure he had stuff going on in his personal life, but before a game in the clubhouse with all of his teammates, he was handed divorce papers. All right, divorce papers. And the story here on this is that it wasn't like a truly expected thing. I mean, I'm sure their marriage had problems, but it wasn't expected, so it kind of caught him off guard. And they could see the expression on his face, like, whoa. And his teammates said, hey, Pete, you know, like, listen, that's a big deal. Why don't you take tonight off? You know, go figure out what's going on at home. Obviously, this wasn't expected. You know, makes sense, right? That's a big deal. I mean, imagine you getting something like that before a big presentation, right? You're going to go do a presentation with one of your biggest clients, and 5 minutes before, you get divorce papers from your wife. You're not going to be focused on that presentation. It's just your mind is gone. But Pete did, you know, he put the stuff away and finished getting dressed, went out to the game. That night, he goes 4 for 4. 4 for 4 at the plate. And over the next 29 at-bats, so the next few games, he goes 22 of 29, which, by the way, if you're not a baseball fan, is an amazing batting average, right? I mean, unheard of over almost 30 at bats, 22 of 29. And they ask him after that, it's like, Pete, I mean, it's been a week now, like, how did you do that? I mean, this is a big thing in your life. And Pete said, listen, the only thing that I worry about, I can only do one thing at a time. And when I walk to the plate, I go to war over the next pitch. My entire focus, everything that I put into is on that one pitch, not the at-bat, not what I did last inning, not the guy in the stands who's yelling at me, right? Not the divorce papers I just got, but that one pitch. It's all I can control at that moment, and that's what I'm going to control. And that's really what thought process of not multitasking, but single task. And if you can do that in your business career, in your insurance career, and whatever you're doing is to fully engage into that one thing you're doing, you're going to start to see phenomenal results. And here's the problem, though, that most people run into is that, and by the way, this kind of looks like my closet not too long ago, but you've got you've got all these boxes, which in this case are things that you have to do, tasks, activities, things that you need to get done in your day, and those things overwhelm you, right? I mean, think about, just for example, moving, and you see all these boxes that have to be moved, and it just becomes overwhelming. So where do you even start? So I want you to think about not doing everything, just doing the next thing. Just do the next thing, one box at a time. Put the rest away. They're not going to go away, right? They're not going to disappear from your life. You still have things that you have to get done, but you don't need to get to them right now. Focus on the task, the priority, that one next box. All right. So here's my challenge for you guys in the coming days and or weeks. I know it's Friday, unless you're watching this on recording and it's a different day. But for a week, I want you to write this down or make a note of this. All right. And I challenge you to do them all. But if not, pick one or two that you think you can do. And it's going to sound almost too easy, but you'll be shocked. You will be shocked by this when you really think about it. So if you're on the phone, be on the phone. Nothing else. Just on the phone. If you're doing a project, do that project. All right. If you're in a meeting, don't be checking email. You be in the meeting. Here's one that I struggle with. When you're driving, drive. For one time, throw your phone in the back seat, right? Just drive. You know what's even interesting? I love to listen to podcasts and information when I'm driving, and it's awesome. But sometimes in life, it's okay just to sit and just think. It's amazing what it'll do for your creativity because our brains never get a break. So just think about that. And then last on here, don't check your phone anywhere in the presence of another human being. Not only is that rude, and again, I've done it many times, but it isn't effective. I mean, you've got time to go look at your phone. So if you're ever in a room where anyone's requiring your attention, put your phone away. Don't glance at something. Don't even look at the time. Just talk to that person. All right. 1 week. 1 week, I challenge you to do that. All right. I'm going to send this to you in an email format afterwards and see how you're doing as well. So now we're going to talk about taking action, right? So I've given you some basic fundamentals, but what's your game plan? What's the next steps? Where do you go with this? It may feel like you're never going to get to the top or you're never going to catch up because there's just too much. Remember, just too many of those boxes, okay? But I want to talk about how you can plan, how you can simplify, and how you can utilize your strengths to start gaining momentum quicker, all right? And the key part here is that today, whatever it is that you had to do today to be successful at it, it had to start yesterday. It had to start yesterday. One of the most famous business philosophers that I love, his name is Jim Rohn. If you heard me speak much, you probably heard me bring him up before. Passed away years ago, but just an amazing speaker. And his quote was, "Don't start your day until it's already finished on paper." And the best time to do this is the day before. So, your day doesn't start at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. when you walk into the office or start your day, whatever it is you're doing. You can't walk in or start without a plan because you will inherently start doing what other people tell you to do. And what does that mean? It means that you will be replying to emails. You will be answering telephone calls immediately. Whatever your assistant or your boss, whoever tells you to do something, you're going to be doing that, which doesn't mean you don't get to that. It means that if it's not the most biggest priority in your day, that's not the first thing you do. You don't become reactive at the beginning. You must take control of your day before it begins, and that starts the night before. I actually use this in my calendar, and I calendar everything because I lose focus with it. I have to know exactly what these blocks are so I can be successful in that. Number two is you got to prioritize. People know this. That's like, duh, right? I got all these boxes I got to prioritize. I mean, of course, Brian, I got to prioritize. Let me give you a story of Warren Buffett. You may have heard of Warren Buffett. He's made a little bit of money in his career. You know, I'm doing my best to catch him, but that's probably going to take, I don't know, maybe 700-800 years to get Warren Buffett. But here's this 3-step process, right, of prioritizing. And the first 2 you're going to get quickly, right? Write down all your priorities. So whatever it is you have to do, your big things you need to get done to be successful in your business, write them down. Now, narrow it down to the top 3, right? Okay, got it. Sure, I can do that. And most people can do that. You've done that before probably at some point. It's the next step where most people do not have the courage or to do what it takes to stay focused. All right, and it's this final step that separates the simple achievers from the super achievers. You ready? So you got this big list, like 27 things you got to do. You look through it and think, okay, these 3 are the most important. Now you take those 3 and you put them on the side. What do you do with the other 24? You throw them away. Throw them away. Again, doesn't mean you never, ever get to them. It means that for that day you don't. Because if you have more than 3 priorities, as Darren Hardy says in the bottom, you don't have any. You don't have any. Because once you get past where your brain loses it, it can't focus. So try to keep things simplified for yourself and keep it with 3. Another thing that I like to do, and I've heard, is to schedule your most valuable projects, I call them. And I gave an example of my calendar here, but I just threw some stuff in there. But this is really oftentimes how I do that. And I call those power blocks. So take your calendar for tomorrow. I know it's Friday, so look for next week and start chunking. Where can you block out times? I know there's things that happen. You've got appointments set up and meetings and all that. I get that. But try to find, if you can't do 3, at least 2 called power blocks. And I do what I call 90-minute jam sessions. So for 90 minutes, I'm going to fully integrate into a project of some kind of task, something that I know that's going to be important. It could be all kinds of different things. But for what you have to do, a couple of things. Everybody's schedule is different. I get that, right? So everybody's different. But also you have to know your strengths and weaknesses. If you are the most creative in the morning, and so you can get some, you get some projects done that are very proposal focused, or maybe some networking things or sales and marketing activities you need to do with your agency. Maybe that's a morning activity, right? I don't know. Maybe you're a night out. Maybe that's better for you though in your family situation or whatever it is. But find some blocks that work for you, because what doesn't get scheduled, if you don't schedule it, it won't get done. I mean, if you just say, hey, tomorrow I need to do some marketing work for my business and do some prospecting. I'll do that tomorrow. And then you walk in the office, good chance that doesn't get done. Because if it's scheduled at 10 a.m. to 11:30 in extreme focus, right, something's going to happen. Email, phone calls, a client call, I need something. I mean, there are always situations that change things. Not everything is perfect. But for most cases, those things are things that can be moved back or on time that's better fit for everybody, okay? Final thing I want to talk about in the planning stage is you've got to be able to sprint. Most of you can do. If you're an insurance agent, you probably know how to sprint. I mean, you know how to work hard. You know how to get things done, right? But it's the recovery that a lot of people struggle with. If you don't recover, you will burn out. And I will tell you, I've already talked about real work and what that's like when you're really focused. Because here's the thing. Most of us, when we do a job, I talked about distractions, but you start something, you get 5 to 10 minutes into it, it gets kind of hard, right? Like this is getting kind of hard. Like my brain is kind of hurting to go through this. So instead of continuing to do it, I'm going to go check something else or get up and walk around. But when you start to figure out these sprint sessions where you're like, no, I've got 60 minutes, 45 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is for you, that I'm going to put my entire mental capacity around this, no distractions, nobody's bothering me, I'm getting this done, it's going to be great work. You will find out quickly that when you're done with that, you are tired. It'll burn you out. So you have to be able to recover. So for me, for example, I try to do 90 minutes. That's a long time, but I also give myself 30 to go hang out, check social media if I wanted to, talk to somebody, whatever it may be, go for a walk with your dog. I mean, whatever you can do, but you've got to give yourself a break, otherwise you will burn out quickly. And the big theme I'm talking about too is that this isn't about perfection. You're not going to have all this stuff down like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I mean, I want you to start getting to that level, but just don't work on perfection. Work on progress. Little things you can do. 2 of my favorite books talk about this specifically. Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, who I mentioned earlier. Talk about the little things that you do each day. It's not these big, crazy things that you do. It's the fact that, what did you do? Well, I started getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and reading for 30 minutes a personal development book, right, for example. That's not going to change the world in a day. But over time, that builds serious momentum because your brain is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and down the road, you've got, that's just one example. It could be anything for you. It could be exercise, right? I mean, the analogy I've often used to that is like brushing your teeth. I mean, if you don't brush your teeth for a day, other than bad breath, your teeth are going to be fine. But over the course of months and years, it's going to be pretty disgusting. So again, think about this having that continual progress. John C. Maxwell. If you don't know John C. Maxwell, you're missing out. Famous author, all about leadership. He's a leadership expert. John has talked many times that the true secret he's talked to in leaders and successful people in organizations and salespeople is that their success is found in their daily routines. Small things they do each and every day that I mentioned earlier that they're doing to get to where they want to go. All right, it's the small things. It's the routines that you do. So start to find something that works for you. I've talked sometimes about booking in your day. Find something that starts your day and ends your day that becomes a routine that can help you achieve greater things. I'm a huge sports fan. Love sports. I have a couple quotes from two famous coaches. Here's one from Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers. Vince won multiple NFL championships, one of the greatest NFL coaches ever. And he always, if you look at all of his quotes, he's got all these great quotes out there. They all oftentimes go back to, not all of them, but most of them go back to basics, right? Just doing the basic things and just the common fundamental things that you can do each and every day. John Wooden, let's see, he won 10 championships in 12 years. Pretty impressive, right? Actually won 7 championships in a row for UCLA. John Wooden, you hear him talk about things and you expect him to have these amazing, he must have the best strategy. He must have run the coolest offense in the world. And you hear him before he passed away in his books that he's written, and it's all about basics and simplicity. We make things way too complicated. John Wooden talked about every year I worried about how they put their socks and shoes on. And at first I laughed at this too. I'm like, oh, come on, John Wooden, you've won 10 championships. I think your college-age athletes know how to put their shoes and socks on. They've been doing it since they were 4. Well, no. The reason why is he said, sounds crazy, but if I don't go back to the very basics and make sure they're doing it the right way, they get blisters and they don't perform as well. I don't care how great the guy is, how tall he is, if he can't perform. I see this with my oldest daughter and their basketball team. I became the shoe coordinator for the 5th grade basketball team last year because they didn't know how to tie their shoes or put their socks on. And then they kept falling down on the floor. It's the basic things that you do. So I just want to throw that out there. And, I hope you see the power now in what game plan and prioritizing and the sprint and recovery sessions and having routines mean. But to go beyond that is how do you build momentum to continue and gain beyond just that, right? We talk about fundamentals and distractions, but you've got to start to understand your true success vitals. Success vital. Well, what's success vital? Well, it's what makes you different. What makes you great? I want you to start thinking beyond just I talk about short-term things that you do each day. Those build to long-term success principles. So I'm curious, just think to yourself, what makes you unique? Where are your strengths? Where can you be a specialist? Where can you do things that nobody else can do? And I always give an example of doctors because it's an easy one for people to understand. And there's nothing wrong with being, a generalist doctor does great things. We see a general practitioner a lot, for our family. But the ones that truly have a special expertise and get paid the most are specialists. Why? Because they have skills and qualities that no one else can do. So I want you to start thinking about your vital few functions. I mean, if you got pen and paper, hopefully you do, make some notes. What are your top 3 vital functions? What do you do the best? All right, what do you do the best? What do you do better, or what do you do that no one else does better? Think about that one. Another question I've asked people is, what do you don't enjoy, right? What do you not like to do that someone else can actually do better? And then what do you love to do? You start putting these things together, you get to know yourself. They become your vital functions. Another thing to think about is, have you ever thought about what your hourly rate is? Now, I'm guessing most of you on here are insurance agency or agency owners, or maybe they're involved in the field of some kind, or just in business. There may be some people that get paid hourly, but most people here probably are on commission or a salary structure. So oftentimes they don't think about this. What is your hourly rate? What is your time really worth? I mean, have you ever figured that out? So think about that for a second. I'll give you some help to speed up the time. We're already about a half hour in this. If you make $100,000 a year, just in general, these are round numbers, you're making about $50 an hour, right? So if you're at 50,000, you're making $25 an hour. If you're at 200,000, you're making about $100 an hour, right? You kind of get the point, just to give you some perspective. So what is your time worth? And ask yourself this really, really, really important question. Is the activity you are doing each hour worth your time and money that you make? Your worth, right? If you were the one making $100 an hour, is For example, mowing the lawn, the best use of your time. If you love to do it and it gives you joy, maybe. If you hate it, it may not be. I used to have a complex a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a bad thing, where I would see people that would have, in my world, things that anybody should be able to do, contracted out, washing the car, mowing the yard, whatever, those kind of things, right? And all of a sudden it hit me, I'm like, well, they're worth a lot more than that. They're wasting money by doing that themselves if they don't enjoy it. So, most people aren't intentional enough with this. They don't think about it. And if you're not to where you want to be yet, think about where you want to go to. So maybe you're only making $15 an hour, but you want to eventually make $100 an hour. Start thinking. You got to have that mental focus to get there, or you'll be stuck in the same cycle over and over. So you really have two choices with your time. You either delete things, meaning that they're not as important to do them at all, like I'm just going to quit. For example, I haven't quit, but starting this new business this year, I played a total of 27 holes of golf this year. 27 holes. I love golf, but I'm focused. I can't. This year is not the time. So I'm not going to do it. So there's maybe things in your life that I can't do. I got to stop watching TV. It's not helping me. I'm going to delete it. Or you delegate in certain activities, right, where maybe somebody in your office can do something better than you, or more appropriate than you, or maybe it's a third party. Again, maybe office staff, or maybe there's a virtual assistant you can look at. I know agents who use VAs now. Maybe there's a way you can automate things. But how can you do it better and cheaper? You got to start having that mentality. And delegation, it truly requires humility. It requires humility, because most people look at delegation. The reason why leaders and successful people initially often talk about why they struggle with delegation is that they have to basically say, hey, look, I'm not the only competent one here. Like, there's some people that are really smart around me. In fact, people that might do things I don't know what to do, they like to do it. For example, accounting. I hate it, right? I could try to struggle through and do it, but I don't like it, and there's people that are a lot better at it than me, right? It's a waste of my time. So you got to find things in your life to do that. So everything that you do is keeping you from what you should be doing. And I want you to start thinking big, right? Think big, not just, and then think bigger. So delegation takes time, all right? If you start to get in this, okay, what can I delegate? You start getting some ideas. It's not going to happen overnight, but you got to think big, you got to think long term. And you got to, from where you are to where you want to be, that requires focus, all right? And what you really have to focus on is, where do you provide the most value to others? I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, think about it. I mean, we're trying to sell insurance policies, right? Where do you bring the most value to others? And that's a question that gets missed a lot, is that, just because I can do this doesn't mean I'm the best person, or I'm actually giving the most value to my client by doing that. They see more value from me doing this. All right, so think about that. Where can you bring the most value? And the process takes you from labor to leadership. Labor is just doing work for the sake of doing work. Nothing wrong with labor. Good labor, hard work, right? But I want you to start thinking from moving labor to leadership. How do you lead? From whatever your role is, whether you're a single agent, whether you're an owner, whether you're a marketing person, I don't care. How do you start going from labor, just doing simple tasks because they're tasks in front of you, to really thinking and planning and prioritizing and being strategic with your time and what you're doing each and every day? Here's your goal. I want you to focus on being productive instead of just being busy. All right. So again, it's Friday morning. Your brains may be getting kind of full. I've thrown a lot at you. I mean, I can't get to everything in a 40-ish minute webinar, but I want you to take some thoughts back with you today. To avoid the bombardment of distractions, you must have a plan of action with a single focus on the task at hand. So here's what you got to do. All right. You want to write these down. All right. Number one, you want to do fewer things. Yep, fewer. Not more, fewer. What can you fewer? You want to do those few things more often. It's number two, more often. And number three is you want to get better at them. So fewer things more often and get better at them. Now, obviously, one of the most productive things that you can do as an insurance agent, right, is write more insurance policies. That brings home, it grows the agency, it creates money, it creates excitement, you got more people, you can fill up the staff, all that kind of stuff, right? So the question I've got for you here, and I don't have a poll for this, if you would, I'm curious. So what is the lifetime value of one customer? Have you ever thought about that? You have. I hope you have. But we always think about commissions, and we think about premium amounts, right? Whatever that may be, and what that means, the number of accounts. But have you ever really thought about the lifetime value of one customer, what that means to you and your agency? So if you've got there's a little question box on there. I'm curious. If you got, throw some numbers in there. I'm curious to see what you've got. You know, I mean, I'm just thinking from my own perspective. It's pretty interesting, and I hadn't always looked at it this way. But you look at, I did a lot of commercial insurance. So if, let's say you look at a $10,000 premium account, right? And this is an individual agent. Let's just say the average commission is 13%. That's about $1,300, right? Goes to the agency at $10,000 account. Easy math. Let's say, we'll just use for easy math because I need it, you get 50% commission to the agent. Well, that's $650, right? So if you can work on some of these tips to be more productive and get to use these values, let's say you keep these for not just a year, 2, 3 years, 10 years, right? Now you've got upsell, cross-sell, inflation, all those kind of things going up each year. You know, a 10-year customer of a $10,000 account isn't probably just $6,500. It's probably closer to $10,000. So, you know, those are things I want you to think about. So building lifetime value for insurance agents, it's what I love to do. So remember, your 1 week challenge. When you're on the phone, be on the phone. Just focus on the one thing that you're doing, whatever that may be. You know, really think about that. So have a productive day. It's been a blast being on here. Again, whether it's questions on the boot camp or productivity, you just want to touch base with me. I didn't even put on here. I should have done that. But just rent@bizgriz.com. You can get in touch with me. Just go to our website. Love to help you. I really want to help agents succeed in any way. So it's been a blast. I'm going to hop off here and have a wonderful day and a great weekend. All right, thanks.